All right.
Okay, great. Welcome everybody to this afternoon's channel Lunch and Learn call. Today we're going to talk about demand generation. And I know that there was a fantastic session at our Partner Summit before Inforum that talked all about the best practices for setting your marketing priorities, exploring your buyer needs, crafting your message, and also making sure that you have the right mix of marketing programs to reach your target market. Unfortunately, I heard from a lot of partners that there were so many great sessions at the summit that they weren't able to attend a lot of them that they wanted to. And I did hear from people that did attend this session that Christine and a partner, Vonazon, put on that it really helpful information. So we've invited them today to give that presentation. So if for some reason you did attend the Partner Summit session titled The Modern Demand Gen Engine, just to let you know, this will be a review. I know there was a lot of great material, so it's often beneficial to hear it twice. And we're also going to be recording this so that if you have anybody else in your organization that you want to share this with, it will be recorded, and we'll send out the link to that recording afterwards. So today we're going to hear from Christine Hunter, who is a marketing director here at Infor. We also have Mandy Harrington, a senior marketing manager, who's also on this call in case there's any additional questions that come up that she can handle. And we also have a partner by the name of Vonazon on the call. They're going to be leading the majority of the presentation. We are fortunate enough to have the CEO of Vonazon, Kevin England, and also a marketing manager from Vonazon, Gail Weinstein. So Kevin's going to talk a little bit more about who exactly Vonazon is during the presentation. Really, this is going to be a lot of great information where you can assess your current marketing practices. Here we are at the start of Q2, and as RVPs, we often tell our partners it's the activities that we're doing now in Q1 and Q2 that are going to pay off for all of our business that we look to bring in before the end of our fiscal year. So there's time like the present to really assess what your marketing plan is and try to make any changes that you can to your marketing mix. So without any further ado, I'll hand it over to Christine Hunter, and she will kick off the call. And just as a note, we're going to try and hold questions till the end so we can get through all the key information. But if there is something pressing, just feel free to either message one of us as the presenters or hosts, or you can raise your hand in the meeting. All right, Christine.
Thank you, Kari, and thanks for the great introduction. We're happy to be with all of you on the call today to discuss the modern demand gen engine. Kari introduced all of us already, so I'll just turn it over to Kevin so he can explain a little bit about Vonazon, and then we'll get going right into the presentation.
Thank you, Christine. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Kevin England. I'm the CEO President of Vonazon. Vonazon is a full-service digital marketing agency. We're located just outside of Los Angeles. We are an Infor partner. We're also a Marketo Gold partner, and I don't know if you attended the Inform 2017. Marketo is a marketing engagement platform and helps a great deal of our customers develop out lead nurturing, demand generation type of processes built into a platform. It's also tied into the Infor CX CRM. So there's a great link between the two platforms to help support customers both within their sales and in their marketing organizations. We've also been asked to provide our perspective on what we do every day for customers to help generate new leads and opportunities and increase revenue within their organizations. And of course, trying to start our quarters out and hit the ground running, and so we're here to help in that capacity. We've also been asked by the executive team at Infor to support and help support any of the partners that might need assistance in developing out their internal demand generation or lead generation practices within their marketing and sales organization. So that's just a quick overview. With me today, as mentioned, I have our Director of Marketing who handles all of our marketing internally. Her name is Gail Weinstein, and she'll actually have a number of conversations throughout this process. So you'll get to hear from her as well. So Chris, let's start it out.
So in the session today, we're going to start by defining what is demand generation, just so we have a baseline for one. We're going to go into a discussion around buyer personas and the buyer's journey, and the actual demand generation process from attract to engage, nurture, convert, and then customer advocacy. And then we will give you a guide that you can take home after this webinar that you can use as you're building out your marketing plans.
So,
sorry.
Oops, go back to the right side.
There we go.
So we want to start off really quick with a brief definition. Since this is talking about the demand generation process, the modern demand generation engine, the question probably arises, what is demand generation? Really simply put, it's a marketing tactic that encourages your prospects to get excited about the products and services that you offer, and it encourages them to research your solutions and your company further. The real goal of demand generation is to build and to nurture relationships with all of your potential customers as well as your existing clientele, again, with the goal to encourage them to invest in what you have to offer much more deeply. The thing to keep in mind is that demand generation has existed for quite some time, but it has evolved over the years. It used to be that, when a business realized that they needed a solution to a problem that they were experiencing, they would seek out a business directly to get help. And usually what that meant is they would speak with a sales rep right away. But now think about that process. When you recognize that you need a solution, you educate yourself. You don't want to talk to a sales rep right away. What that really equates to is that the typical customer is anywhere between 65 to 90% of the way through the buying process before they're just ready to speak to a sales rep. So to wrap this up, you as a marketer, you as an organization, you need to make sure that you have the content in place that speaks to needs of your prospects and get them interested in researching your company further. It's really the only way that they're going to make it through to sales.
The benefits associated to demand generation, which is increased revenue and profitability for businesses, and I don't know how many of you in the audience are feeling the same way. So when I'm starting to talk about some of these things, I'll just talk about a lot of the benefits associated to it. One of the big benefits of demand generation from my perspective is that we're reaching new audience, we're attracting new leads organically, we're providing a steady stream of legitimate, qualified, and interested prospects into our sales organization. And then, of course, there's that huge impact on revenue when you take those qualified leads into sales qualified leads and then turn them into actual sales. In addition to the stream of marketing qualified leads that are pretty much handed over to your sales department through the demand generation process, to solidify your company's standing as an authority within your industry, which will increase the number of sales and the amount of each sale. So then increasing revenue, the amount of each sale. And that momentum will continue to build consistently over a period of time. Sorry here, guys, I'm a little low at it. Go ahead.
Thanks, Kevin. So now we've understood what demand generation is and why it's so important, let's understand the actual process that it takes. So I'll go over these just at a high level, but then we'll dig into each of these elements a little bit further in the presentation. So first stage is attract, and this is where you're really going to be creating content that appeals to your specific buyer that you're trying to attract into your demand, into your sales funnel. You want to engage them. That's the second phase. You will want to engage them with capturing their information through landing pages, email clicks, and other forms that you may have. You want to nurture them, and you can do this through setting outbound marketing programs or lead nurture programs. And then, of course, we want to convert them into actual customers. So this is where we see the sales engagement process. And then we don't to stop there, actually want them to be an advocate for our business and for the solution. So that's the last phase, the customer advocacy phase. So for the next slide, Gail will take us through the buyer personas and journey.
Exactly. We kind of deep dive into that detailed demand generation process. There's two foundational pieces that we absolutely need to make sure that we understand first, and that's understanding your multiple buyer personas as well as your buyer's journey. The reason that we want to make sure that we understand these two pieces before we dive deeper is because these strategic pieces are going to set the stage for all of your demand generation marketing that will follow. So this is always where we recommend that you start out.
So persona is a semi-fictional representation of your target buyer. You can see on the left-hand side, what we go through is developing this template that really helps us understand what role that persona is in the organization, what goals do they have, what decision drivers really make them tick, how do they buy, what content sources do they look at when they're trying to educate themselves on solutions, and then what can we do to help. So you can see this table. I know that the Vonazon team uses this type of template a lot of times when they're talking with their clients. Infor uses this as well. So you can see the difference between talking with a CEO versus a VP of IT versus a VP of sales, for example. And use this to really make sure that we are creating content that's very relevant, and we're segmenting our list and the way that we're going to market. So on the next slide, we've got an example of a CEO for an industrial manufacturing company. And you can see basically that table filled out with all the different information related to that role. So obviously CEOs are strategic leaders of global organizations, and they need to drive growth and profitability. If you look at how they typically buy, they invest typically when they are seeing a positive ROI and something that supports the company mission. They typically look at analyst reports, case studies, articles. They do talk with their peers about solutions. And then they also look at outside sources as well, for example, the Harvard Business Review or Industry Week. And then you can see that we've crafted our marketing message around that persona. So you're talking about how our solution is a platform for growth. It can transform the way that your employees work, and there's obviously an integration across the organization, so that helps to provide visibility as looking at data within the organization. So the things to really think about here is, who does your company target, right? What are those titles in the organization? How can you separate them out into different buckets? You can look at the C-suite versus function or department-specific titles, and then use that to create your highly focused list segmentations and provide customized content based on those segmentations. So we have a great resource at Infor that is available to all of the channel partners. It is the Buyer Persona Central. So we launched this at the last fiscal year, and there's a link here that you'll be able to get after this presentation. And there you'll see buyer personas that are just horizontal, regardless of industry, but there is also a layer on top of that that looks at by industry who are buyer personas, and there's a really detailed document that will give you some of this insight. So I know we talked about it in Inforum. There was a lot of dialogue around the variation in buyer persona whenever you get down to the industry and size of company. They often have something a little bit different that makes them tick depending on their role and the size of company.
The next step after truly understanding your buyer persona is to understand your customer's buyer's journey from their perspective and from where they sit, how they engage with you. So the buyer's journey is that direct representation of your client's buying process and life cycle. And the process is all the research that your customer does, whether it be in-store, online, or otherwise, before they actually make a decision to purchase, and hopefully that purchasing decision comes from you. So look at the buyer's journey. You look at disruption as pain point, problem, or challenge that your customer might be having, and you look at decision as the decision for them to, to either buy most likely to buy from you. It's the three middle, the awareness, interest, and consideration, that marketers are mostly having to spend the majority of their time creating out messaging associated to. In the awareness stage, as a customer moves through that process, in the awareness stage is where you're actually developing out content, providing information about who you are as a company, and what makes you an authority within your industry. In that interest stage, you're providing interest into the different products and services that you might be providing to your customer, potential customer. And in the consideration stage is making them aware of why they should be buying from you in comparison to your competition. So the areas where you want to focus on in the marketing department to eventually get them to the point of crossing the finish line to make a decision to purchase from you and not your competitors. So I'm going to skip to the next slide, which is some of the things that I want to, kind of drill into your heads today about the buyer's journey that's incredibly important is to not only understand the buyer's journey from your customer's perspective, but to also make sure that you're addressing each stage when it comes to the content that's being developed or distributed to that customer based on where they are within the buyer's journey. So as people are interacting with content for longer than they ever have before, and they're making purchasing decisions based on the content that they're interacting with during that time, or the education that they're receiving over that period of time through their buyer's journey. Or it's you're not providing information. If you're not providing information that they need, you're going to have to find that information elsewhere. So if you're not providing it to them, your competition is providing it to them. If your competition is providing that content to them, then basically they're going to buy from your competition. So you want to make sure that you're providing them the content they need to educate themselves about your product, your services, and what they should be buying from you so that they're not buying from your competitors.
We've set the foundation on buyer persona and buyer journey. Let's go ahead and walk through each of the stages in the demand generation process. So first stage is attract. So I talked about this is where you are really focused on content. That's really the entire focus on this attract stage. So the reason why that is that you want to obviously attract new leads. So you want to be able to provide them the information they need to purchase from you. And so this is really where it's really important to vary your content and how you deliver your content based on the buyer persona and buyer journey that we just spoke about. The first step that I like to take in this attract phase is really conducting a content audit. So this is examining your marketing materials, what you have already. And I'll challenge you to really be critical, take a critical eye on what content you have, what are your strengths, and where are gaps. It's really important to identify this and and to be critical so that you can be the most relevant that can be whenever you're pushing your content out to your prospects. What I want to look at here is if you're not addressing every single stage in the buyer journey for each buyer persona, that's where you'll identify a gap and look at the material that you have already. See if there's something that you can do to tweak the content to make it usable or create derivative assets. So a lot of times we've got one really great meaty piece of content that we find that we can create offshoot or derivative assets off of that. So you can have a longevity with one content piece depending on where it is in the buyer's journey. So thing to make sure that you do is to take an omni-channel approach whenever you're pushing out your content to attract your prospects. So what you do is focus only on one channel, like email, for example. What you want to do is incorporate a dynamic approach to your demand generation campaign so that you can make sure that you've got content available on multiple channels wherever your prospect is searching. And so the way that we look at this is in 4 different types of channels. I'll start from the top right is your own content. So this is what, we have Infor.com is our own domain content. This could be our customer portal pages, webinars that we host, blogs that we have, podcasts that we host as well. So this is really Infor own content or content, again, that your company owns on their own. There's also paid content. You partner with industry firms or associations that are influencers in the industry and pay for content that you can use in your marketing programs. And one reason why this is really to have as part of your process or of your channels is adds a layer of influence and validation into what your company's or what your solution mission is. So about where you could partner with some of those analyst firms and get that paid content. That's also a great way if you're limited on resources to be able to accelerate the amount of content that you have that you can push through your program. Then we do push out paid content through lots of different paid channels as well. So this is where you can push through content syndication, standing up content syndication. You would want to put through vendor evaluation sites, paid webinars with industry associations, or through paid campaigns with Google or with Bing or with other social channels. The third category is earned content. So this is where you'll traditionally see being pushed out through media, press coverage, customer testimonials. That's obviously after making them customer advocates. Anything in the influencer community. So we came out a lot of Inforum with lots and lots of new content that really you guys can leverage as well. This is all earned content from the analyst relations community and influencers in the organization. They go off and write content on their own site that certainly you can reference. It's public, it's out there. And then finally is shared content. So this has obviously been a major rise in the last couple of years around social media and social selling. And the thing that I want to make sure that everybody takes away here is that it's not necessarily important that you're available on all of the social media channels, but again, think back to your buyer persona and figure out where are those people consuming content through social channels. So for my business, a lot of times on Twitter and LinkedIn is where we see. So we've chosen to go really deep in providing content through those channels. If you've got buyer personas that are engaging on other social channels like Instagram, Facebook, make sure you're present there as well. So summary on this attract phase, what you see is, again, to reiterate, this is content that you're providing based on buyer persona and buyer journey. And so the little graph is, I think, a really great takeaway for everybody to see what content you would want to share in each stage. So at the awareness stage, this is where you're going to be doing easy to digest content. You want to address the pain points with the solutions that your company provides. So examples of this is your website copy, emails, simple brochures, or any explainer videos about your value proposition and what your solution offers. If they go a little bit further down the funnel in the interest phase, this is where you want to provide more focused content. You want to present information about your products and services and provide a clear call to action. And so this is where you'll typically see ebooks, webinars, infographics, or product brochures, that deeper information. And then finally, once a prospect is in the consideration phase, you want to make sure that you're providing highly targeted content to them. This content should really encourage decision-making and then obviously position your company as a viable solution. So examples of this are case studies, customer testimonials. This could also be where you are providing invitations to demos that your company is hosting. This helps for them to consider the solution in greater depth.
Christine, so the next stage is jumping into the engage stage. This is where basically you're capturing information. So you've developed, you've looked at your gap analysis as far as your content is concerned, and now this is where you're actually wanting to capture information from your customers and prospects and engage with them on a more regular basis. It's that starting point for the demand generation process. And the goal here really is to start building out more personalized profiles, utilizing things like landing pages and forms and other pieces of information in order to capture more detail about your potential customer. The beginning part of that process, when you're using like a marketing automation platform, one of the coolest things that I feel about marketing automation, just the beginning part of it, is that website tracking beacon. So every time someone comes to your website, they basically get a cookie on their machine and it tracks their behavior across your website. Know what what infographics they look at, what videos they've looked at, how many downloadable assets that they've actually engaged with. And so that's that first start in this process, and that's converting that unknown visitor into a known lead now. And that's, again, that first stage in this process, convert them from an unknown visitor to a known lead and be able to track their behavior as traverse your website or engage with the content on your website, which will allow for your sales team, your SDRs or your sales people out there to have more meaningful conversations with your customer because you know what they tend to look at or what seems to be important to them. Next thing is that in how to engage with them or capture this information is through landing pages. At these two pages as relatively somewhat the same. They have the same heading, but one has a format to capture more information. The other one doesn't, and it's basically the question on whether you should be gating your content or not gating your content. I've been on a lot of panels where we discuss that, and some people are for it, some people against it. Well, I'm for gating your content if it's relevant to the individual who's engaging with your content. So in other words, if you don't know a lot of information about that person, then gate that content and capture the information. And if the content that you're trying to provide to them is content that's valuable and educational and provides them with information that they probably don't already have, it's important at that point to gate that content, capture more information, and then basically be able to nurture them from there. Guys, again, if you already have that information, you don't have to gate the content, and you allow someone to basically, click on the button, download whatever they need to, and capture that information that way. But the cool thing about, what you have them cookied is that you know that they've gone to that landing page and they've downloaded that document, whether you capture more information about them or not. The next is, and I thought this was kind of important, I get hundreds and hundreds of landing pages on a regular basis, either developed out by customers or developed out by our own internal organization. And I've got this pet peeve as it pertains to, how we should present our content on a landing page. And so this is a gated content landing page. And if you use these steps in that process, you'll find that more people will engage and download the information that you want them to review. So step one is show them what they're going to get. Give them an idea. Show them a visual. I'm visual. I like to be able to see things. So show me what I'm going to get when I download this document. Step two, give me a very easy, simple form that I can use to provide you with some very basic information. Not too much information, just enough to get me to fill out the form. Also, where it says download guide, don't use words like submit. Tell me when I click a button, what am I going to do? I'm downloading a guide. So tell me that I'm going to be able to do that. And step three, wanting to learn when I download this guide and information. So I have 6 little things. It's going to tell me very quickly what I'm going to learn when I download this and as I review the information. If you do step 1, 2, and 3, you've got a great landing page. If you add in other things like step 4, where you have client testimonials or other people that have downloaded your information that have benefited from that, well, you've knocked it out of the park at that point. And at that point, you're going to get more people to engage with the content that you want them to engage with and provide you with more information about who they are and what makes it, what's important to them.
Stage is nurture, comes after attract and engage. This is my favorite stage of the demand generation process because this is where you get to see all the hard work that you've spent so long putting together. This finally is put in action. You see everything come to fruition. This is where you're actually nurturing your prospects through awareness, interest, consideration, progression, filling off that initial interest in your products and services, getting ready to be handed off to sales. So to kind of take, again, half a step back and understand, what is nurturing a lead? What does that process really mean? Essentially, it's the process of developing out a relationship with your buyers at every stage of the buyer's journey. Your real goal here is to listen and then respond to the needs of your prospects as close to in real time as possible. In order to be successful, you really need to place yourself in the shoes of your potential customers. Ask yourself, if I was sitting in their shoes, if I was in their spot, what would be my most likely next thought? What would I want to learn about next? What would be my questions? What would I think is interesting? What would I think is not interesting? Once you have that information on hand, you can anticipate what their mostly next steps are going to be and do the heavy lifting for them. You want to be able to provide them with a very easy path to follow down. It feels very natural and organic to them, which will encourage them to research and engage further. And ultimately, the main thing to think about when you're looking at nurture is this is a stage where you make sure that the right person gets the right content at the right time. In order to make sure that you're able to, facilitate this goal, you need to make sure that you do have all of the content developed out. It follows the same rules and methodology as Christine mentioned in the attract stage, and it's going to feed into that buyer's journey progression, awareness, interest, consideration. The real benefit in using a marketing automation or a marketing engagement platform here is that the process of classifying where someone is in that buyer's journey process, it can all be automated based off of lead score, based off of specific activities or engagements or profile conditions, and the goal is to automate that as much as possible. For content in the nurture stage, as I mentioned, they're pretty much the same ones that have been listed out in the attract stage. Down that process, top, middle, bottom of funnel, awareness, interest, consideration. You go from providing them with really simple content that focuses on problems and pain points in the awareness stage. You want a really heavy focus on solutions in the interest stage. And then finally, you want to showcase what it's actually like to work with you, with your organization, when you hit that consideration stage. And the demand generation progression, it perfectly aligns with your marketing funnel that feeds into your sales funnel that you can see there at the bottom. And your main goal here is you want to make it easier for conversions to take place, and that's going to result in many more closed opportunities, both net new as well as renewal clients.
So to the convert stage. Now, this is my favorite stage. This is because we actually make money. This is where we actually turn things into revenue. So with all that work that Christine and Gail have developed out in the marketing process to create eventually a marketing qualified lead that turns into over to sales, so that leads, turn opportunities and turn into sales. Converting stage, though, really starts with understanding how important it is to bridge the gap between your sales and marketing department. I meet with my marketing team every day. My sales team meets with the marketing team every day. Now, that's probably a lot, but you might want to think about doing something similar to that. I have a couple questions, but of course, I'm not going to be able to necessarily ask them, but I just want you to keep these in mind as you're defining the roles within your organization and how often each part of your company are meeting together. So how often are you engaging your sales and marketing team together to talk over analytics, KPIs? How well did that content do? Are people actually downloading the information that spent weeks to develop out? And then how frequently are your sales team and marketing team working together? Now, we asked at Inform almost at every session, like, how often do you recommend? I mean, yeah, I do it with my team pretty close to every day, but I would recommend at least bi-weekly or once a week to have your sales and marketing team working together. Because marketing is a huge part of that sales process, so make sure that they're actually collaborating and understanding KPIs and metrics, because that's what's important to me within my organization. The next is understanding and basically converting that sales process and working together in that capacity. So what's incredibly important is to facilitate kind of that harmonious communication, as I mentioned, between your sales and marketing department, so that they can truly understand what each other is doing. You want your sales team to understand the process that your marketing team goes through, and then of course your marketing team to understand your sales process as well. Realistically, both teams should have the same goal, which is to streamline their processes together and reduce the length of time of the sales cycle. I mean, here's an example. So think about it. If you have a sales cycle that lasts 9 months, but your marketing team has a lead nurture campaign that only lasts 3 months. What's going on for the other 6 months where you're not engaging or nurturing your customers? So you got to get everybody on the same page so that they're working together to reduce that sales cycle, increase revenue, increase the number of marketing qualified leads that turn to sales qualified leads, and eventually turn into closed opportunities for your business. Great way to communicate. So what we have within our organization, and most of those that work with like a product like Marketo or our marketing automation platform, we use these real-time sales alerts. Sales alerts are easy if somebody fills out a form. Well, that's obvious. Someone filled out a form, send the alert over to your sales manager or your sales team, and they follow up with them. Well, what about if somebody goes through the process and they engage with all this great content that your marketing team is developing, but they never fill out a form? And just to give you a heads up on that, only 2 to 5% of people actually do fill out forms, so it's really small. So what do we do in that capacity? Well, the marketing qualified lead has to eventually be sent over to sales. So we use something like these sales alerts, that when somebody becomes marketing qualified, a sales alert is sent over to a sales team, and at that point it provides basic information about the customer or the prospect. It tells me their page views, the site visits, and even tell me how many different organic keywords they typed in. It tells me how many emails have been sent, how many have been opened, how many things they've clicked on, what they've downloaded, and it gives me a lot of information once I click through. So this allows our sales team to have a much more detailed conversation with the customer, provides us with the ability to potentially provide more information to the customer so we can get them on the track to close the sale. Which then brings us to that whole point of integrating your CRM with marketing automation or marketing platform so that they're truly working together. So what happens in marketing transfers over into your sales team and then eventually allows the salespeople to take with it and run with it. But what are situations like when your sales team is in their CRM and they're clicking on customer, they've had a conversation with the customer and they want to disqualify the lead, or they want to turn the lead into a sales qualified lead because marketing updated them as marketing qualified. Now they want to turn it to sales qualified. So you have to update fields within your CRM that eventually traverse back to the marketing platform that says, hey, stop emailing this guy, stop sending the multitude of campaigns holistically across, social and search and all the other things, because audit from here. So is your CRM integrated with your marketing automation platform to do something like that? Or even the simple things like, okay, this guy or this company is not ready to buy from me, but I want to return them to marketing for 3 months. So marketing can now nurture them further throughout the process. So again, getting that, this is all the conversion stage. Get your marketing and sales team working together to develop out these types of campaigns and strategies, and you will find a tremendous amount of success at the end.
Now, the final stage in the demand generation process is customer advocacy. So this is really a time to review what you put in place and celebrate that you actually made it through this demand generation process. But also the time to evaluate what performed well, then make some strategic decisions about how to follow up with your new customers to make sure that they stay engaged with you indefinitely. We know that customers to have a choice after they select, so it's really important to turn these customers into lifelong advocates. There's campaign ideas that you can implement after they become customers. So this is a great place to stamp referral programs, to upsell or cross-sell, create and distribute seasonal or promotional campaigns to your customers, return them back to other marketing campaigns, or just continue to re-engage with them. So there are lots and lots of options here. Talk with your team, talk with the sales team too, and understand what is really the next step for your customers, what's the logical next step, and how can you address something with your customers that you haven't previously in the sales cycle, and you can that up through this customer advocacy stage. Send it over to Gail, and she's going to walk through a diagram that helps to illustrate this further.
So I know it's a lot to take a look at it first, but I promise the more you look at it, the more the diagram does make sense. Essentially what this shows you is a complete iteration of the customer life cycle. It starts off with that marketing process, moving from disruption, awareness, interest, consideration, finally to decision, and they make that bright red dot, that purchase order. Now they're a customer. From here, it's really cyclical process. It's a customer journey. You want to keep them in that main circle because at any point they could branch off and become a lost customer. So how do you keep them working with you, continuing to purchase from you time and time again? And if you read all those little bullet points, it essentially boils down to continued value add, continued servicing of your customers, encouraging them to stay with your company and repurchase over and over. The only way to do that is by, again, putting yourself in the shoes of your customers, asking yourself, what I want to learn about next, what questions be, and then from there, do the heavy lifting for them. Continue that demand generation process and recognize that just because they purchased one thing initially, that doesn't mean that they can't purchase something else within your organization. Take the opportunity to upsell and cross-sell as much as possible, but do so in a really strategic way that's complementary to them, that seems natural and organic, as opposed to trying to push them down a path that seems less easy for them to move through. I did want to just, wrap up with this. Remember, your demand generation process, essentially all that it is an iteration of this funnel. I'm sure many of you have seen in one way or another previously. All your goals are outlined here as you move down that engagement path, awareness to interest, consideration specifically about the products and services your company offer, and ask yourself, what I want to consume if I was a potential customer? When would be the right time to consume it? And how can I make that message most impactful? So with these questions in mind, you can always work backwards and build out a funnel that's going to really more effectively convert your new leads into hot prospects and then into continually paying customers.
Thank you very much, our team. Thank you very much for jumping on this call with us today. We do appreciate it. We hope that you learned a great deal about the demand generation process. We have a great partnership together with Vonazon, Infor, and you, the partner, so let us know how we can be of assistance to support you in closing more sales and opportunities for your business. So, Christine, I'm going to turn it over to you. I don't know if we're responding to any additional questions, but we can kind of take it from there.
Great. Thank you. We did have one question come in the Q&A box, which was around buyer personas, so I'll just reiterate the answer for everybody so in case it's helpful. The question was, how do you get data to populate the buyer persona template? So my response in that is that we actually do survey internally our subject matter experts as well as sales teams that are involved to create those, and then certainly, again, those are available to you as channel partners of Infor that you can bridge the work that we've already done on those buyer personas, and if you need to modify off of that, you've got a great baseline. Kevin or Gail, do you guys have anything to add to that on how you get buyer persona data?
To say this, just so you understand the magic within an agency such as ours, that is the first thing that basically we have our account managers do with customers is use that spreadsheet to capture the buyer persona of every individual, every potential customer within an organization. They have a tendency to have to work with the sales and marketing team in order to capture that kind of detail. And then they go down the path of the gap analysis and in the buyer's journey. Another person mentioned something also about surveys. And Gail, didn't we use a survey? We use a survey for webinar.
Yes.
So we used a survey to capture information about a webinar and about webinar strategy, and that survey worked really well to capture additional information about companies that were trying to develop out strategies around webinar. So using a survey is a great method to profile net new customers and to get additional information, so eventually you can nurture them and develop them along further. Any other? Go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing that I would want to come to the end of this conversation is you think realistically about understanding your buyer personas, understanding your buyer's journey. A lot of them are really kind of basic. You've been doing business for a while. Of course you know what your potential customer looks like, your ideal customer. But if it's not actually written down, some sort of referenceable document, it's easy to kind of get sidetracked when you're developing out, multitude of different types of marketing content, and it's easy to kind of forget that you want to have your content as focused as possible at all times. If you have to go back to a documentation and say, okay, where is this, downloadable asset? Which buyer persona does it fall most, or to align most closely with? And which stage of the buyer's journey does it most likely fall under? That's going to, cause pump the brakes briefly as you're developing out your content, but ultimately what that's going to do is it's going to, encourage you to create much more meaningful, much more impactful content. So it's going to have a better result at the end of it.
Okay. That's okay.
There's one more question that's just come in. Will content be created to address the needs of the personas by tier?
Ooh. Huh.
I would say that's your ideal. You want to understand not only from a vertical perspective, but also from a horizontal perspective. Getting content associated persona, and then by persona by tier, so that lateral development of content.
I'm wondering also if you're asking if content it can be created within Infor based on tier. Is that, Christine? Is that how that?
Yes. Okay. We do that as well. We do typically look at content that we create by kind of department, but then also their level in the organization, because we know that that's something, it's different depending on where you are in the organization. There's different content types that we would need to create to be relevant in each age.
To add to that, so those of you that are on the phone, Infor has a wealth of documentation. And I would encourage you to take a look at the documentation that they have and maybe add some of that documentation to your own, website and share with people, that type of content and information. And you will find that people will engage with that content on your website as they traverse your website and they traverse more information about your business. Between tiers of ERP, such as Christine. Yes.
Between tiers for ERP needs. So this we do not necessarily at the product level. So the question is, do we create content based on the ERP needs, such as Sign versus LN? So what we know about those ERP products is a different company demographic that typically aligns which of those with Infor's ERP offerings, and so we would align content that would speak to that size of company. So typically Sightline, obviously it can sell further up in the market, but it is more of a medium-sized business where Ellen, for example, is at the enterprise level. And so what we know about that with the product, we do infuse that into content that we create. At large organizations, there's obviously different challenges, and that's why we've got the individual ERPs that solve those challenges. So I think Infor is in a very unique situation in that we can really add in, based on product, the content that's relevant, based on company size. That's one of the reasons why we've got multiple ERPs, because we recognize that one size doesn't fit all. So infusing that into your content is, I think, really helpful, and Infor, that's one of our main differentiators. So we've got a way to do that in our messaging.
All right, I'm going to end with on that is that I think getting the content and putting all that content together is great, and I love it. My marketing team does it all the time, but you got to figure out a way in order to to create generation for your business, to create more leads for your business. You've got to get that information out to your potential customer and get them to engage with it, which takes you through that entire process of nurturing them over a period of time to review that content that you've put together. So just keep that in mind as you're trying to develop out and make it so that you're generating more leads and opportunities for your business.
Well, if you have a question, you can type it in the chat section, or I believe there may be a hand raise button. I'm not as familiar with this.
Yep, there's a hand raise button just at the bottom underneath the present list. Any of the attendees
Perfect.
have a question and would like to raise their hand? Well, otherwise, I want to thank Kevin and Gail and Christine and Mandy for providing this information. Guys, I think this is crucial for you to consider all of these different areas, especially as you're putting together your marketing plans to be reviewed for your MDF requests. You've heard over the last few years that buyers are doing their own research on their own before they contact you, but to actually hear statistics of 65 to 90%, You know, they're already that far through the cycle before they contact you. And another key piece of information that I took away from this is that, listen, if you're not providing the information to your prospects, then your competitors are. So I think, you know, even if you are not using Vonazon services directly and you have an in-house marketing team, it's great to be able to look at all the different stages of attract, engage, nurture, convert. Of course, customer advocacy, right? Who doesn't love a customer referral? It's really important to take a look at all those different areas and make sure you've got an omni-channel approach. So thanks again to our presenters. Thanks to all of our partners for taking 60 minutes out of your day. I really appreciate it, and I think this can make a big impact on your business. So let's kick off to a great Q2. And again, this is recorded, so we'll send out this information shortly. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.